I'm surrounded by amazingly august company, Jamie Raskin, who represents Maryland's 8th District, Katherine Clark, who represents Massachusetts' 5th District, but more than that, Katherine Clark, the whip for the Democratic Party in the House, Jamie Raskin, the ranking minority member for the House Committee on Accountability and Oversight, and of course, well known to us as the leader of the second impeachment and a member of the January 6th Select Committee. Thanks so much to both of you for being here. Do I need to introduce you? Have you met each other before?
I met Katherine once.
Okay.
Yeah, he looks very familiar.
I
was one of the lieutenants in the campaign to get her elected, our whips.
All right, very good. Well, I want to talk briefly about the convention, but then move to both of your sort of concerns about the House. So let's start here. Not your first rodeo, right? So the vibe, everyone is talking about a really unusual sense of excitement. Fair, overblown? What's your feeling of the vibe in the room?
Yeah, it truly is electric.
Yeah.
We often describe conventions that way, but this really is. I have never seen a campaign come together so fast in these historically unusual circumstances and just capture where the American people are. And Kamala Harris sees them and they see themselves in her. And it's really the word that our candidates are using, that our members are using, is palpable. Yeah. They're seeing it in volunteers, they're seeing it in the energy in the convention hall, and they're seeing it turn into just a campaign that is people-powered because it's centered around them. And people are connecting to it.
You know, that theme has really come through. It's not simply Democrats as representing the middle class, but speaker after speaker has explained, like Kamala Harris, they are of the middle class, giving their personal stories, and therefore would be for the middle class. All right, so Congressman Raskin, you had the opportunity to speak on Monday night. Tell us a little bit about that, and I wanted to ask both of you, who other than, of course, the representative of the 8th District of Maryland, what speech you found especially exciting, compelling, different, whatever.
Well, it has been tremendously exhilarating, as Katherine says, and there's an enormous amount of resolve here, and you feel it from everybody. I mean, these people are workers. They're not here just for a party. There's a celebration of the new spirit, but these are people who are going to spend every day between now and November 5th fighting for Democratic victory at every level on the ballot. But it was daunting to go and speak because the speeches have been so magnificent. I mean, I followed by a couple, the vice-ranking member of my committee, my good friend Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I thought she gave a mesmerizing speech.
She rocked the rafters. Yeah, unbelievable, right?
It just really inspired young people all over the country, and I heard it from young people in my family, and it was extraordinary. But I thought that Hillary Clinton gave a spellbinding speech, and so I was very moved by the whole experience. I was a little bit unnerved because I used a teleprompter for the first time, and I said I can just use paper. They said no, use a teleprompter. Everybody's using it, and then it broke down in the middle. So there's a moment where I sort of pause, and then I just kind of launched back in, and they caught up with me, so it was all right.
Got it. And I should just mention about Cortez, that's very much your own kind of program with democracy. Summer, you've been doing that for years. Any speech stand out to you in particular? Obviously, there were many barnstormers, but...
Yeah, I mean, it gets really hard to choose, but I have to say, Michelle Obama knocked it out of the park. Yeah. And her message to this country about that we have to take the words of Kamala Harris's mom and do something. That this is our moment. We're at this crossroads in history, and we are all going to be able to do this if we act together. And she just did a really beautiful speech of pulling those themes together and delivering it in an incredibly powerful way. So Hillary Clinton was fantastic. I hate to choose, I thought Michelle really brought it home.
Yeah, I think she has this reputation as not a politician and somehow speaks with more credibility. I'm just going to throw in my own nomination for Best Supporting Speech. Steve Kerr, I used to cover basketball, man, he really blew me away. He might have a political future in the
Not only was that a beautiful speech, that was a funny speech.
Right.
And I noticed they're getting funnier over the few days. Right. People get a little more relaxed. But when he said, that he loved Tim Walz, our great new vice presidential candidate, who was our colleague in the
And you're
House.
speaking tonight, right?
He said, I loved him, but I have one disagreement. And then he got into blitz strategy in one season, and how he would have held back one linebacker and brought up his safety, and it was a riot in the pre-January 6th sense of the words.
All right, I want to ask you both about the concrete possibility, but obviously a real fight that the House return to Democratic hands. First, Congressman Raskin, you're the ranking member in the Accountability and Oversight Committee. It's one of the big reasons you actually declined to run for Senate. That is as Orwellian and bizarro world as they come, and that's saying a lot. What are your plans, or what do you see that as the promise of that committee were to be under the chair of Jamie Raskin?
Well, we have succeeded in destroying their pathetic impeachment drive against Joe Biden and debunking and refuting every fraudulent claim that they've leveled against him. In fact, their own report debunks every fraudulent claim they raised against him. But look, we've got serious problems in the country, and we've got a real legislative agenda to deal with them. And the role of the Oversight Committee should be to conduct the hearings that educate the public. So we are in the middle of this massive gun violence crisis, right? We have levels of gun violence and gun mortality 25 times higher than people who live in the European Union countries. The leading cause of death for children under age 18 and teenagers is gun violence, more than automobile fatalities or pneumonia or other diseases. So we want to do a series of hearings like the January 6 hearings of that level of sophistication and methodological rigor, which show why gun violence is so serious in America and what realistically can be done about it in order to give support to our legislative agenda. And that's just one example of the kinds of things that we're going to do in order to propel forward all of the great changes that the Democrats are working on.
Yeah, of all the areas in which this country is outliers, gun ownership, gun advocacy seems really first among all of them. So Congresswoman Clark, we've had occasional discussions or mentions of, and we got to get the House and keep the Senate, et cetera. That's your main lookout, of course. So I just wanted to ask you these next, 75 days, 76 days, how will your focus on taking back the House differ? What are the sort of stress points, that ways the campaign could help you? How do your challenges differ from them? Talk about the specific strategic goal of getting the House back in blue hands.
Yeah, we know that people have to be put back into the people's house. And right now with the GOP, as my friend was just describing, their focus is on their own civil war. Their focus is on their own obtainment of power. Their focus is not on delivering solutions that people are looking for. So our campaigns, and I have always been bullish on taking back the House, and with the excitement and momentum of Kamala Harris's presidency, presidential campaign, and Tim Walz running for vice president, we are also seeing a benefit from that. We are seeing candidates that were doing well already, now seeing an influx of volunteers, those small first-time donors, that when someone writes you a check for $10, $15, that's a vote. And the word that our candidates, our incumbents are using is palpable. The energy change is there. So already, I thought that we were on a very good path, but we know that all of these races are going to be a series of tight races. And this infusion of momentum, having people see themselves in Kamala Harris's campaign, is also an infusion of energy into ours.
Give us 2 or 3 races we can really look at if we're wanting to see how things are shaping up.
Oh my gosh! Don't make me choose.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Yeah.
But we of course are looking at New York.
Yeah.
We have many great opportunities there. California.
Amazing that it went the way it did. Now, right there, it seems like they're real.
Seeing
California.
new
I know
races in Pennsylvania, in Oregon, in Nebraska, in Iowa. We have 2 great candidates, and all of these races are obtainable for the Democratic Party, because what we're seeing that people are rejecting is the extremism.
Yeah.
They want their government to give them the tools to succeed. And that's what Democrats are offering.
And I'll just say some of the biggest frustrations of the last few years, the enabling of Trump has had so much to do. They've kind of played a secondary role, but with the absolute intellectually dishonest, how would your colleagues in the House? We've talked about that before. Thank you so much this is also, by the way, the 300th episode of Talking Feds. You in particular, Congressman Raskin, have been such a supporter from the start, our little engine that could, and we're really flourishing now, and I thank you both for your help.
Happy 300, Harry.
Okay.
You don't look a day over 275.
Exactly right.
That's great.
I'm living right with good guests.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
Harry.
so much for being with us. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.